Amber Heard has made a new post as of December 19th. I'm a little behind, but we're going to read this together. I do believe it's come after the settlement, and I will find the information on that and make a video about it. YouTube was giving me such a hard time about monetization. They monetized my shorts, but saying it's reused content. They did to Incredibly Average and started making other things as well as, so I wasn't just making what I believe they think is anti-AH content. So I've been making other stuff in between. Let's see what this says. I'm sure it's chock full of triggers. After a great deal of deliberation, I have made a very difficult decision to settle the defamation case brought against me by my ex-husband in Virginia. Of course, she has to make sure it was him against her, his offense. It's important for me to say that I never chose this. I defended my truth, and in doing so, my life as I knew it was destroyed. Yes, because you didn't do anything. Accountable, never. And she's obsessed with that. I spoke truth to power and paid the price. The vilification I have faced on social media is an amplified version of the ways in which women are re-victimized when they come forward. You perpetuated the ways women are victimized when they come forward, or re-victimized when they come forward. So, put on the back that you helped perpetuate those narratives and the apprehensions survivors have to feel when they come forward. The fear that they won't be believed. Because whether or not they know the validity of your side of this, it has to, naturally perpetuate, will they believe me? And that's nobody's fault but yours. Now I finally have an opportunity to emancipate myself from something I attempted to leave over 6 years ago and on terms I can agree to. Yeah, because he hasn't left you alone. And you could have left with spousal support. In the recording, the 30-minute one on my channel, she says she accidentally clicked it, but she didn't mean to. So she could have left with spousal support, almost did, but then chose not to and said, I don't want anything, because that wouldn't be a very good PR look to take spousal support from your abuser, would it? And says, I'll give it all to charity, and then she never does give it to charity. Why isn't there an answer to that in this? Who knows? I have made no admission. There's plenty of admissions in the recordings on my channel. This is not an act of concession. There are no restrictions or gags with respect to my voice moving forward. Dang, that sucks. Just kidding. I make this decision having lost faith in the American legal system, where my unprotected testimony served as entertainment and social media fodder. Okay, so she's exactly where she was months ago. She hasn't evolved or had any introspection or reflection to at all reflect on what part she played in this and to be honest about it. I can already tell. When I stood before a judge in the UK, yeah, that went exactly how you wanted it to, and in my opinion was because there were connections behind the scenes, which I never ended up. I had a few subscribers drop the information, which maybe I'll go and do that now. Actually, there were connections to the judge there, so of course, and maybe a production company or a TV company, one of the, before I know more, can remember exactly. When I stood before a judge in the UK, I was vindicated by a robust, impartial, and fair system. Yeah, her speech was like a Miss America speech after it was sick. You just won because you claim you survived domestic violence, and you're talking like it's a parade in North Dakota. It was bizarre. When I stood before a judge in the UK, I was vindicated by a robust, impartial, and fair system where I was protected from having to give the worst moments of my testimony in front of the world's media, and where the court found that I was subjected to domestic and violence. In the US, however, I exhausted almost all my resources in advance of and during a trial in which I was subjected to a courtroom in which abundant direct evidence that corroborated my testimony was excluded, and in which popularity and power mattered more than reason and due process. In the interim, I was exposed to a type of humiliation that I simply cannot relive. In editing, I'm revisiting the fact that the main thing she feels she went through the trial and can't handle going through again is humiliation. That's the worst feeling. I think that's the most honest, is that she felt humiliated But as a survivor, I feel as though you would feel re-traumatization, not just humiliation. But I think she's being the most honest there. She can't stand being humiliated with the truth. Okay, let's go back over this for 1 second. What she's talking about, the evidence. Wouldn't the evidence that they allowed in the UK that they didn't in the US, wouldn't that have further reliving your nightmare? So that's like almost an oxymoron, because you're saying that the evidence in the US made you relive your nightmare, but then you weren't allowed to put in the evidence that would have made you relive your nightmare. Am I dense? Am I like... During a trial in which I was subjected to, which abundant direct evidence that you had all of that other stuff that you thought was going to corroborate your testimony, and it didn't. It's just that there were others there that were there in the moments that you thought corroborated your testimony that did not witness what you claim happened, nor what happened in your evidence. I still don't get that. The UK stuff that wasn't allowed in, yes, it might have been harmful to Johnny Depp's, that was allowed in the UK but not allowed in the US. It might have been harmful, but she claims that it she's like making it seem like it wouldn't have made her relive her trauma as a survivor, even though it would have even further. If it was damning evidence for Johnny, that makes no sense whatsoever. In the interim, I was exposed to a type of humiliation that I simply, narcissists can't handle humiliation of any sort. Even if my U.S. appeal is successful, the best outcome would be a retrial where a new jury would have to consider the evidence again. I simply cannot go through that for a third time, and you can't afford it. And the resources you talked about spending weren't yours in the first place because you didn't pay the money to the charity. So it weren't even your resources, and it was on your insurance's bill, and I believe that must help you with your legal bills. So it wasn't even your resources. Maybe 2 million of it was. Time is precious, and I want to spend my time productively and purposefully. For too many years, I've been caged in an arduous and expensive legal process, which has shown itself unable to protect me and my right to free speech. I cannot afford to risk an impossible bill, one that is not just financial, but also psychological, physical, and emotional. Yeah, because you didn't put him through any of that before this. Women shouldn't have to face abuse. Don't align me with you. Do not align me with you. Women shouldn't have to face abuse or bankruptcy for speaking her truth. But unfortunately, it is not uncommon. That's true. A lot of women without evidence are find it, very hard to come forward. But a lot of the women that don't have the evidence to come forward also don't have a bunch of evidence against them proving the complete opposite like you did. I'm getting uppity. In settling this case, I am also choosing the freedom to dedicate my time to the work that helped me heal after my divorce. Please don't. Please don't. Don't. I'm sure the ACLU will accept you, but please don't continue to do victim advocacy. Oh my God, I'm begging you. Or please do, so we can keep making videos about it. I don't know. I mean, that's not a threat. I just think that's so wrong. And after the countless comments I've read about people, survivors, and just how much she has insulted and offended and re-assaulted them with their trauma, she has no self-awareness. Work that exists in realms in which I feel seen, heard, and believed, and which I know I can affect change. You're seen and heard. Am I reading the same statement from the girl who had sex on a glass floor and had tons of men watching? Did my battery die? 1 second, sorry. She says she doesn't feel seen. Let me read that. In which I feel seen, heard, and believed, and in which I know I can affect change. Seen. This is the same woman who had sex in a room with a glass floor with
allegedly
tons of men watching underneath. She knows she's seen. The way she's trying to act feeble and vulnerable. Read The House and Habit. That's the real AH. That's all I'll say. I will not be threatened, disheartened, or dissuaded by what happened from speaking the truth. Oh, okay. Like, the only people who have been threatened are people like that umbrella guy and stalked by people that are your supporters. No one can and no one will take that from me. My voice forever remains the valuable asset I have. I'd like to thank my outstanding appellate and original trial teams for their relentless hard work. I want to thank everyone who has supported me, and I turn my attention to the growing support that I've felt and seen publicly in the months since trial, and the efforts that have been made to show solidarity with my story. Any survivor knows that the ability to tell their story often feels like the only relief, and I cannot find enough words to tell you the hope your belief in me inspires. Not just for me, but for all of you. Thank you. See you soon. And this has 220,748 likes. Oh, and I just noticed in editing, there's Eve Barlow still hanging on. So like if Johnny Depp posted something like this, it would have like definitely over 1 million, if not multiple. But just shows you the tiny fraction of people that support what she had in this post here. I'm sorry, I feel like I talked a lot through that, but that was like extremely triggering with the BS that she was saying through there. And having listened to, I transcribed all the conversations between them, and I've had people telling their story for their first time in my comments and just stating how like her trivialism of it and her weaponization of it has like made so many sick, triggered. Like, there's far more that feel like that than feel like they need her to go out and advocate for them, and to cater to her inspiring heard scene side. Like, if anything, don't do it. You'd be doing a far bigger justice. But I gotta go get my kids for my husband, so I'll talk to you soon. The next thing that happens and I make a video about. Have a good one.